The rain fell in relentless sheets, turning the narrow alley into a mirror of glistening water. The dim orange glow of the street lamps flickered against the puddles, casting fractured shadows that danced like restless spirits. Aarav stepped cautiously, his polished shoes splashing in the shallow water, his trench coat clinging to him from the downpour. The air was thick with the smell of wet asphalt and something more sinister, a metallic tang that made him stiffen. He tightened his grip on his flashlight, the beam cutting a narrow path through the darkness, illuminating a toppled wooden crate that lay partially submerged in a pool of crimson. The color was stark against the gray concrete, and Aarav's heart sank. Someone had been here, someone had suffered. A faint noise drew his attention, a soft, uneven scuff, like footsteps hesitating on wet stone. He turned sharply, training his flashlight toward the sound, and there she was. Maya emerged from the shadows, drenched, her dark hair plastered to her face. Her eyes, wide and haunted, flickered with panic and a strange, defiant calm. She held a letter tightly in her hand, the edges torn and water-stained, and her lips quivered as she struggled to speak. The rain ran down her cheeks, indistinguishable from the tears glistening in her eyes. Aarav studied her, noting the tremor in her hands, the way she kept glancing over her shoulder as if expecting something, or someone, to follow. "Looks like our devil walked away clean, but the stain remains," he muttered under his breath, kneeling beside the crate. The blood was fresh, dark, and viscous, soaking into the cracks of the concrete. He swiped a gloved finger through it, grimacing. There was a story here, a truth hidden in the chaos of the night, and he had to uncover it. His eyes lifted to Maya, who had taken a hesitant step closer, still clutching the letter as though it were a lifeline. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispered, her voice breaking. She finally let the letter slip from her fingers, watching it float onto the wet ground, the ink bleeding into unreadable streaks. Aarav's gaze hardened, the detective in him pushing aside any flicker of sympathy. "Tell me what you saw," he demanded quietly, "and why you ran." She hesitated, her body stiff, as if fighting an invisible restraint. The sound of distant thunder rumbled overhead, punctuating the tense silence. Then, just as suddenly, the camera, or rather, Aarav's trained perspective, caught it, a faint trail of blood leading from the crate toward her shoes. Maya's gaze dropped, horror washing over her features. She swallowed hard, her lips trembling, and the rain continued to pour, washing over both of them as if trying to cleanse the alley of the night's horrors. Aarav's voice was low and steady, carrying authority but also a hint of curiosity. "You need to tell me everything," he said. The shadows deepened around them, swallowing the edges of the alley, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. Somewhere beyond the darkness, danger waited, but right here, in the flickering glow and relentless rain, a story was beginning, a story of crime, deceit, and a love tangled with blood. The alley seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move, the next confession, the next step into the darkness. The rain fell harder, and the world seemed to shrink around them, leaving only the blood, the letter, and the silent promise that nothing in this night would ever be the same. The interrogation room was stark and unwelcoming, its bare walls casting long shadows under the harsh glare of a single overhead bulb. The faint hum of the air conditioner mingled with the distant patter of rain against the building's windows, creating a cold, oppressive atmosphere. Maya sat in a metal chair, wrists shackled to its sides, her soaked clothes sticking to her skin, hair plastered to her face. Her eyes were wide and haunted, darting toward the lone door as if expecting someone, or something, to burst through at any moment. Across from her, Aarav sat in quiet authority, leaning slightly forward, his gaze fixed on her with unwavering intensity. He pushed a photograph across the table, a blurred CCTV still showing a shadowy figure leaving the warehouse where the crime had occurred. "You were there," Aarav said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of accusation. "We traced your call, your footsteps. The blood matches, and the crate belonged to the warehouse registered to your alias." He let the words hang in the room, the silence that followed almost suffocating. Maya swallowed hard, her lips parting slightly as she struggled to find words. I didn't kill him, she whispered, her voice fragile but edged with defiance. I only wanted to scare him. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edges of the chair, nails digging into the metal. Aarav leaned back slightly, studying her expression, searching for any sign of deception. Scare him enough, and sometimes, people bleed, he said slowly, the weight of the truth hanging in his tone. Maya's gaze fell to the floor, her breathing uneven, tears mixing with raindrops that had leaked from her soaked hair. He threatened everything, my past, my secret. He pushed me too far, she confessed, her voice barely audible. The room seemed to shrink around them, the walls closing in as her words echoed in the dim light. Aarav's eyes softened just a fraction, recognizing the mixture of fear and regret in her eyes. Then help me find him, he said quietly, almost pleading. The real devil. Maya hesitated, a shiver running down her spine as she contemplated the risk, the danger that lay beyond the interrogation room. Her fingers clenched the edge of the table. If you go after him, you'll cross a line you can never come back from, she warned, her voice trembling but steady. The overhead bulb flickered, casting erratic shadows across their faces. Aarav leaned forward again, voice low but insistent. We cross lines every day for justice. I need to know I can trust you. Maya lifted her eyes to meet his, pain and fear warring with determination. I can't guarantee anything, she said, her voice breaking, except that I will do what I must to stop him. For a brief moment, the storm outside seemed to echo the turmoil inside, rain thrashing against the windows like the beating of their hearts, both tense with unspoken truths. The room was silent again, only the distant echo of thunder marking the fragile truce between them, the uneasy alliance born of fear, guilt, and the shadow of a crime that had already claimed too much. The rooftop was drenched in rain, the city lights below blurred into a sea of color through the downpour. Water streamed down Aarav's coat as he stood near the edge, the wind tugging at his trench coat like an invisible hand. The night was alive with tension, the distant wail of sirens, the occasional flash of lightning illuminating the clouds, and the constant, steady pounding of rain. Maya emerged from the rooftop door, soaked through, her hair plastered to her face, and eyes wide with a mixture of fear and resolve. She held a small USB stick tightly in her hand, her knuckles white against the slick metal. Aarav's gaze searched hers, his voice low and controlled. You helped me. You told the truth about the crate. You led me here. He paused, eyes scanning the rooftop, the shadows, the edges, measuring the danger. But do I trust the rest of you? His words were more than a question, they were a challenge, a reflection of the tangled web of deceit they had been unraveling. Maya stepped closer, rainwater dripping from the edges of her hair. You don't have to trust me, she whispered, her teeth chattering from the cold and fear. But I need you, to end this. Her voice trembled, yet carried a quiet strength. She extended the USB stick toward him, the small object heavy with consequence, holding the secrets that could bring down the real criminal. Suddenly, the rooftop door burst open behind her. A shadowy figure appeared, silhouetted by the lightning, gun in hand, rain slicking his dark clothing. You should have stayed dead, the figure growled, voice gravelly, menace dripping from each syllable. Maya froze, instinctively stepping in front of Aarav. Her arms extended, protective and desperate. The criminal fired, the flash of the gun striking across the stormy night. Maya screamed as the bullet struck her shoulder, her body jerking with pain. Blood mixed with rain, dripping down her soaked clothes, but her grip on the USB stick remained firm. Aarav reacted instantly, gun raised, training every ounce of focus on the attacker. He fired with precise, controlled shots, forcing the shadowy figure to stumble and collapse into the darkened corner of the rooftop. Sirens screamed in the distance, their wails cutting through the roar of the storm. Aarav rushed to Maya's side, kneeling beside her as she leaned heavily against him, her breath ragged, pain etched into every movement. She clutched the USB stick against her chest as if it were a lifeline. You risked everything for this, Aarav said, voice heavy with a mix of relief and anguish. Maya's lips curved into a faint, blood-tinged smile. Because sometimes, the devil must die for love to survive, she whispered, voice barely audible over the pounding rain. She sagged into his arms, exhausted, wounded, and resolute, the weight of the night pressing down on them both. The storm continued unabated, soaking them to the bone, but in that fleeting moment, they were united, not just by duty and crime, but by a love forged in darkness and blood, scarred yet undeniable, leaving the city lights and distant sirens as silent witnesses to their fragile, haunting bond. 1.